Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan Station.
Welcome to Japan Station, a production of JapanQ.com. This is the podcast where we teach you everything you should know about Japan, plus a few other things. I'm your host, founder of JapanQ.com, and the anime linguist on YouTube, Tony R. Vega. Today we're talking about one of Japan's most famous and ancient pilgrimages, the Kumano Kodō, a series of pilgrimage routes that are mainly located within Wakayama Prefecture. In case you're not aware, Wakayama Prefecture is in West Japan. It is near Osaka. You can take a train and get down to Wakayama probably within 1 to 2 hours. It's been a long time since I've been to Wakayama Prefecture, but I did visit once or twice when I was living in the Kansai area. And I remember it being something along those lines, like maybe 1 or 2 hours by train. Now, I haven't been on the Kumano Kodō. If you're a returning listener, you may know that I've been walking across Japan. So I've basically walked the distance between Tokyo to Kagoshima, 1,400 kilometers since 2023. And I've... There's a lot of times when these walks are not enjoyable, but I've enjoyed the overall experience of getting to see Japan in this way, of getting to walk through these areas that most people never even visit. Right? You might see them from the window of a train, but that's it. So I've always been interested in these walks, these, hiking in Japan, these pilgrimages. And so I've been wanting to talk to somebody who's been on the Kumano Kodō and can tell us a little bit more about it. And recently, very recently, just like a few days ago, as of the time of this recording, I came across an article written by a Toronto-based travel writer, an award-winning travel writer named Jennifer Bain. And I read her article. I really enjoyed it. And so I emailed her and asked her, would you come on the show and tell us a little bit about your experience on the Kumano Kodō? And that's exactly what happened. So she took a 5-day trip on the Kumano Kodō. She didn't walk the entire length. This was an organized tour by a company named Oku Japan. And the interesting thing about this option is that you have a lot of flexibility in how you walk the Kumano Kodō. If you want to walk the entire thing, you can do that. If you want to do a hybrid of walking and then taking the bus, you can do that as well. And that's what Jennifer did. And the lodging and the food seem to be all part of this tour. So this is quite different from the way that I walk across Japan. I just wing it and figure it out on my own. But I think this way, the way that Jennifer walked this chunk of the Kumano Kodō, is a really accessible way for people to do it. Not everybody is crazy like me and is willing to spend the entire day walking through like rural areas of Japan or some kind of maybe a little bit dangerous stretches of the Kumano Kodō. So doing it in the way that Jennifer did opens this up to a lot more people. So if you're into this kind of thing, now you know, right? You can have this option. You don't have to like go there and just walk 8 hours every day. No, you can do a hybrid like this. And Jennifer shares some interesting stories of things that she encountered along the way. For example, some really unique lodging, like these hostel type accommodations that are basically at former schools. I won't say anything else. You'll get to hear her tell the story. I think this was really interesting. And then at the end of the conversation, you're going to get to hear about a convenience store, conbini tour that she did in Osaka. She went to a bunch of conbini in Osaka, guided tour. I didn't even know this was a thing. Oh, we also talk about socks, these famous socks. So stick around until the end because it's a really fun conversation. And of course, I will include a link to the article that Jennifer wrote about her experience. I'll also include a link to an article that she wrote about her first trip to Japan, which was in Hokkaido, specifically like the northern area, in some really like remote areas, like islands off the coast of like northern Hokkaido. It's a really interesting experience, really great article. So if you want to learn more about that, again, check out the link in the show notes. All right. Here we go. Here's my conversation with Jennifer Bain.
A year or so ago, I went to Spain sort of for the first time as a travel writer. And while I didn't walk the Camino, the famous Camino pilgrimage trail. We drove by the Camino and I saw all the Camino walkers and it started to sort of infiltrate my mind. And then I found out that Japan has the Kumano Kodō, which is a network of pilgrimage trails just like the Camino. And the section that I picked to go on actually has sort of, a partnership with the Camino that you can earn dual pilgrim status. So if you walk, a certain amount on this, the trail that I went on, you can stop at a little visitor center type situation and get stamps towards your Camino, which I didn't end up doing, but I was happy that it existed, and that's what led me to pick this particular pathway. And actually, there was another reason. So there's a company, and so I'm a travel writer, and as travel writers, we sort of rely on invitations to visit places that are usually hosted by tourism or hosted by tour operators. So it's all about the connections that you have. And so this company, Oku Japan, which helps facilitate walks on the Kumano Kodō and other places, they have a presence in the Canadian market and they want Canadians to come. So they invite Canadian travel writers. So I had been looking at what Oku Japan offered in January, and that this is what they suggested was this particular Kumano Kodō trail, which is sort of their marquee trail, and so that's how I ended up on it.
Yeah, so like a lot of the Kumano Kodō, like kind of the main parts are in like Wakayama Prefecture, and that is not a particularly like famous, like the prefecture itself isn't. Kumano Kodō has become pretty well known in more recent years. I think there's a lot of promotion going on to get it, to raise awareness. But Wakayama itself is not usually a region most people go. But I was reading your article, and it was really like a lot of rural areas in Japan are not easy to get to, and like you don't really want to go there because it's kind of hard to get around and all that. Like it's inconvenient, but like the tour that they set up for you seemed like really great. Like even if you're not like an experienced Japan traveler, like they really made it easy to go through all of this and go through this rural area of Japan. I was really struck by it. Could you tell us a little bit about the tour that Oku Japan like set up?
So my friend who married a Japanese guy and lives in, I guess, suburban Tokyo, she was like, Kumano Kodō, I've never heard of that. She's been with him 28 years, I think. And so I've only been to Japan twice, and in those two times, I spent one day in Tokyo. Like that, cities don't excite me really. So I love off the beaten track. I love rural. I love under the radar. And I guess because I hadn't traveled too much in Japan, I wasn't particularly worried about how I was going to get around. That was sort of the beauty of going with a company like Oku Japan, is they handle the logistics. So they have two kinds of trips. One is guided, where you go with a small group and they guide you. And, as a writer, that's sometimes better because you can kind of play off the guide and learn more. But in this particular time, I went with another travel writer and we did self-guided. And so with self-guided, they gave us just all kinds of information. Like I just pulled out all these handbooks, the self-guided walking guidebook, the traveling in Japan handbook. And then they gave us a series of maps, Kumano Kodō walking map, section 1, 2, 3, then a 3, 4, and then a 5. And so you had to kind of cross-reference between the documents, but it literally was like, walk 500 feet and turn left at this and go to this bus stop and get on this bus and pay this much bus fare and take it to this stop. So literally every step was taken care of, even though we were in a very rural, quiet area. And I just checked back in my story, and I made a note in one of my stories that I took 10 buses, 7 subways, 2 limited express trains, 2 taxis, a bullet train, and an interior flight during the sort of the wholeness of this trip. So it was a fun lesson in public transit for sure.
Yeah. No, I read. I think you arrived in Tokyo, took the bullet train down to Osaka. From there, you took the train down to Wakayama, and then you were in the Wakayama area.
Yeah. And so, even though it is a walking pilgrimage, there's a lot of local buses involved in the sort of routes that they pick to get you from place A to place B and on trails and then over to your guest house for the night and then back to the trail. So, it's not just straight walking. And really, honestly, I loved being on all the little local buses. And I loved appearing in the middle of nowhere, like coming off a trail in the middle of nowhere, and it's saying there will be a bus at 2:18 p.m. and literally a bus shows up at 2:18 p.m.
Yep.
And you're like, how is this possible? That's crazy.
Yeah. But that is so helpful because some of these areas, they don't have, let's just say there are buses, but it might be like 4 in a day or something like that. You don't want to miss it. You want to know when the buses are, and you want to know exactly where the bus stop is going to be so you don't miss it. And it's so nice to hear that everything is laid out for you, especially if you're not used to traveling through these rural areas in Japan.
Exactly. And also to have, we had to have cash for all of the local buses.
Yeah.
I believe
So true.
Yeah, they don't take those Suica cards or whatever. And so you have to have small cash, I don't think they even take bills. And I think there's a little machine at the front of the bus and you can put a certain coin in at the highest to get change when the bus is not moving. But other than that, it has to, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, once you get out of the main regions, sometimes whether it's on the local railways or the buses too, they don't accept the IC cards, either the Suica or the what's it called, Ikoka in the Kansai area. So you have to be aware of that if you're traveling in rural Japan, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you give us an idea of the itinerary? I think it was 5 days. So how much were you walking and how was it all planned out?
Oh, I didn't refresh myself fully on that. So let me just try to reminisce. The first day I remember was the hardest. Okay, I'll just read you a little bit of this. Get off the bus from Kitanabe at Takajiri and cross over the bridge. You will see a small visitor center on the right, which we did go to, and we bought those fun Japanese raincoats, the really huge ones you can wear over a bicycle.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they were there, and it didn't end up raining, but we were happy to have them. But they had toilets and then a gift shop. Enter a small shrine on the left, Takajiri Oji, one of Kumano's 5 most important Oji shrines at the confluence of the Tanin and Shibari rivers. You will find a tea house at the entrance to the shrine, etc., etc. The tea house wasn't open because it was January, and so that's where we started. And we walked really through a treacherous, I don't know if it was 2 hours. I feel like it was 2 hours straight uphill. Wow. It was the forest. We're Canadians, so we're used to forests. We knew that there could be bears there. We're used to bears. We didn't see bears. And I guess one of the things about the Kumano Kodō is in summer, it can be a bit like a highway. So even though you're saying it's lesser known, it is still known, and it can be just body to body people, even here in this rural area. But we barely saw anybody because we were traveling in January. And so that was actually really kind of peaceful and nice. So I think we went somewhere as far as Takahara. That's kind of all I remember about that. I just remember it was
2 hours walking uphill.
Yeah, it was. I remember being very grumbly, if you want me to be honest, being like, this is not a good place for them to have started this trail because I hate the trail. I hate this. This is too hard. It's not fun. It's kind of unpleasant. When will it end? Right? And not just that it's uphill. It was just that it was, it's not like a fancy, well cared for path. It can be rocky. It can be narrow. You can be scrambling up rocks and my friend who I was with is quite short, so her stride is not so long, and so she was having struggles sort of climbing when it was sort of rock steps and that. And then, when we sort of got to the higher ground, and then you go through what they call an undulating forest, kind of going up for a bit and down for a bit and stuff. Then it's pleasant. Then you're like, okay, this is nice. Why didn't we start here? Right?
Yeah.
We're like, we're not like super hikers that are like, oh, that was a great cardio workout. We're more like, oh, I hope the whole trail's not like this. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that day. So the other nice thing about the way that Oku Japan structures it is there's always choices. So if I refresh myself on that first day, I think we went 4 or 5, 6 hours, something like that. And then it was like, now you have a choice. You can either like stop here and catch a bus to your guest house, or you can walk like another 3 hours to your guest house. And we're like, oh, we're going to stop here. So there's no shame in that, right? Like we quickly decided that we don't have to walk every step. Like we walked quite a bit today, quite a distance, and we walked to our limit. And the experience of the Kumano Kodō is not just walking on the trail. It's the whole thing. It's going into the villages and the communities and being on the buses and having your dinners and your breakfasts and walking around the town. So we're like, I think we'll have more fun, going in there. So
yeah, no, that's wonderful. You have that choice. Like the people that are hardcore, they want to walk all that, they'll do that. But not everybody has to do that, and you can still experience this part of Japanese history and culture. So yeah, I'm glad they structure it that way.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the food? Like I for example, like I read like you got to go to like an orange farm, and you're getting like, rice balls in the morning, like all these little interesting extra stuff. Like when I'm walking to Japan, I'm like, just, okay, I got to walk. I'm not like in the morning, getting to go to an orange farm. So I was like, oh, that sounds so nice.
So yeah, the first night we stayed somewhere around Kamiya Kuzo, I believe that the town was called, in I don't know. I'm going to just call it a guest house.
Don't worry too much. I mean, very few people know these names, I think.
Okay. So we stayed in, I don't know, a cool place. Actually, I do remember now. It used to be a school. So it was like a school that kind of was abandoned because the town kind of moved on, or people amalgamated schools.
Yeah, less people, dwindling population. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they turned it into sort of a guest house, but it had that sort of school vibe, right? Where everything's sort of one floor, but spread out over a big area. And they had a little restaurant, and the meals were included, at least in our package. And so it was like at 7 p.m., come for dinner. And then you come for dinner, and it's a set meal. So I just remember, we sat down and all the food is presented to us. And really all I remember is every meal was like, I want to say anywhere from like 8 to 15 items. You know what I mean? Like it would be... Yeah,
little dishes, tons of little dishes, right?
Tons and tons of little dishes. And like, a big rice cooker and a bowl of soup. And so I'm allergic to shellfish. And
okay.
No. And so I actually delayed for a long time going to Japan, because for a long time I carried an EpiPen, and I was like, I just don't feel like I can go to Japan. Like I used to be a food writer, a newspaper food editor. And I was like, I know what I can eat when I go to Japan, but I'm going to be missing like 90% of the food, and it's just going to be depressing. So I think I'm not going to do it. But times have changed. There's so many more vegetarians. There's so many more vegans. There's, people are used to accommodating for allergies. In Japan, maybe not in this section, but in my other trip to Hokkaido, there's like a whole Japanese visual, what is it? It's like for allergies. It's like a national guide for allergies, and they have all these icons. Oh, really? For all the allergens, like soy or fish or shellfish. And so again, not in this not in the Kumano Kodō, but when I was in Hokkaido, I would go to, say, a hotel buffet breakfast or dinner, and they would have the name of each dish, And then they would have the little visual icon to show the allergens. So
Wow,
I
that's
already
great.
knew, I knew that I could kind of work around it, with a margin of error sometimes for those things. And so all they told me for this was, are you okay with fish? Because for our miso soup and such, the dashi broth can't be substituted. Like we cannot ask in these rural areas for a vegetarian version of dashi. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. So that worked out really nicely. And then in the morning we would have, again, sort of a set breakfast, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 little small dishes, always like bits of eggs and tofu and bits of sausages and vegetables. And then they would pack us a lunch for the trail. And I guess those would be like bento box style.
Right.
And then we could supplement it depending where we were. That if we were, say, getting off at a bus stop and walking, 500 meters to the trailhead, there would, as you know, often be a convenience store, a conbini, somewhere in between that. And we could run in there and grab a few extra things.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice to, have it all, you got your meals all planned out. That is really nice. I'm always like scrambling.
Yeah. Well, in some of these small places we went, there were no, I'm not sure there were restaurants, right?
Yeah.
So back in Kamiya Kuzo at the renovated schoolhouse place where we slept, Oku Japan, just to flesh out the itinerary, had set us up for like a seasonal experience. And we were lucky enough that we were able to go to an orange farm. So it was a family business, and the daughter, Reiko, she picked us up in her truck and drove us to her family house where we met her mom and her brother, and we hopped in different vehicles and drove down some crazy roads to this sort of hillside orange farm. And they proudly showed us all these different kinds of oranges, and then they had a tasting of different oranges for us. And I don't remember the names of all of them, but there was one that was, I'll just call it a Japanese Mandarin. And it took me back to the 1970s when I was a kid. And at Christmas, everybody, in Toronto at that time would buy a box. It was like a cardboard box of Japanese mandarins for Christmas. And it was a special thing. And it was a box that had, I'm going to guess, like 30 or 40 little mandarins. And they were all wrapped in like a pale green tissue paper. And so actually my parents always put like one of those in our Christmas stocking.
Oh, wow.
And now, of course, I can go to the grocery store any day and buy mandarins from all kinds of different countries. And they never, they're okay.
Yeah.
They're fine. But when I was at this orange farm and she let me taste this mandarin, I was like, this is exactly the mandarin I ate when I was like 5 years old. It's so good.
I love that. Yeah. Mikan, right?
Yeah.
That's it. You were right in the perfect season, so makes sense. How cold was it? Was it, I mean, you're in Canada, so maybe cold is not too big of a deal for you, but I'm in Hawaii. So.
Oh yeah.
But how was it? How was it? Was it okay?
I was not cold ever. I don't remember ever being cold. And again, we were really lucky that it didn't rain, because there is a big thing with the Kumano Kodō that when it rains, it's very treacherous. So I think I was trying to explain to you how treacherous those first 2 hours were.
Yeah.
But if it's raining, a lot of people have to get off the trail because it's just not even safe.
Oh, wow.
The way that the trail is with the rocks and the steepness and the whatever, that if it's pouring rain, it's just super treacherous for slipping and falling. So we were really lucky that didn't happen. We bought those beautiful Japanese raincoats, didn't have to use them. And I think we probably dressed the way that Canadians dress for winter, which is in lots of layers, right? Like nothing big or heavy, no huge, Canada Goose parkas or anything like that. But I would say in Fahrenheit, I'm guessing it was like in the 60s, maybe 50s at night.
Okay.
And in Celsius, I feel like it was like 10 degrees, maybe 15 at the most, when the
Yeah.
sunshine came out. I don't really I just remember it was really nice. Like
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
with the Kumano Kodō, when people do it normally in the busy season in the summer, they have to carry a ton of water, and we didn't have to. And we still
Yeah.
had to hydrate, but we didn't have to hydrate for sun or heat
Yeah. Yeah.
exposure. So that was a bonus.
Yeah, no, doing a walk like that in like the Japan summer, no. That's a bit too much.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
on the flip side, I had one night that was like, it was like a little crazy. I didn't love it. I won't say where it was, but it was like another place that we got to. We got off the trail. We had to walk down like a long highway to get to it, to this little town. And it was nighttime already, so there was no time to explore. And I think that town only had 2 places you could stay. We were at one of them. And it was another renovated schoolhouse.
Interesting.
Which was fine. But we walked in, and the guy behind the reception desk was wearing a ski jacket. We're like, oh no. And so I guess, every country is different. Canada, we heat our homes in winter.
Yeah.
And in Japan, or rural Japan, they don't like to, or maybe it's expensive, or there's just not a culture of heating as much. And this particular like huge old schoolhouse was different than the first schoolhouse, which was, a series of rooms that were separate. This had like an internal hallway, and the rooms were all off the internal hallway. Anyway, it wasn't heated. And so that's why
even inside the room, I guess you had the wall.
You had your own switch in the room to heat your room.
Right.
The hallways, and they were very long hallways, were not heated. And there were, and I didn't love this, but there was a shared bathroom. So if you remember, like elementary school, there was like a girls' bathroom. Yeah, girls and a boys. So I had to go to the girls' bathroom, and I'm a woman of a certain age, so I go to the bathroom a lot through the night. So I had to like get up from my little warm, toasty room and literally put my jacket on. That's how cold it was, and like shoes, and walk down the hallway to the other end of the hall, freezing, and sit on like a cold toilet seat. And for dinner that night, like the cooking staff were like wearing jackets. The whole place was really cold.
Yeah, I guess it's because it's a renovated school, so you've got this big space, and in Japan, like a lot of times the schools are like open. It's just the room that will have like either the air conditioner or the heater, and just the hallways are completely open and not heated or cooled. So I suspect that's what it is, because normally at most hotels, like, or even like most hostels in like the cities, it's not like that. It might not be as heated as it might be in the US or in Canada, but there still will be heating in the hallway.
There's still some heating for sure. Yeah, we didn't have a problem anywhere else. Although there were hotels, that were not hugely at capacity, because again, it was low season. And so there were cool to cold hallways.
Right.
But,
right.
That's different, I guess, when you have a proper hotel room with your own washroom and you don't have to.
Yeah. Very different. Yeah.
But I remember the next morning for breakfast, and that was much more of like a Lonely Planet sort of backpacker vibe kind of place. So the next morning you go in, and it's like where we had dinner and where we had breakfast was probably the school cafeteria. So it's just big, long communal picnic tables, and you just sort of sit down, and they'd put a little place setting for where you were sitting. When we went for breakfast the next morning, they'd gotten it together, and they had shut the whole area off to warm it up, and it was warm, and the staff in the kitchen were no longer wearing ski jackets. So that was nice.
Wow. This really seems like a result of the area trying to promote this pilgrimage in more recent years, right? Because like we were talking about, this is a rural area. They're not going to have hotels, but if they want to promote the area, they need to have places for people to stay. And so it seems like this is this thing that they've come up with. I really wonder, like, who's running that hotel? Was it like a government initiative, or did like a company come in and they set that up? That is so interesting.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, it was very cool.
Hey guys, if you want to make sure that I can keep bringing you more content like this, then you should definitely join the Patreon. It starts at $1 a month. That gets you early access to episodes and no more of those automatically inserted ads. Also, this episode is going to have a little bonus segment at the end in which Jennifer tells us about an interesting tattoo/onsen related thing that happened to her along her journey on the Kumano Kodō. But that's going to be an exclusive just for the patrons. So if you want to join the Patreon, go over to japankia.com/Patreon and join today. Link in the show notes. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Japan and I need to make a phone call. What am I gonna do? Well, if you had the voice and data plan from Mobile, MOBAL, you wouldn't be in trouble because you'd have a Japanese phone number and you'd be able to make that phone call. Maybe you need to call ahead to your lodging. Maybe you need to, I don't know, call for help. Whatever the case may be, there are occasions when you're traveling in Japan and you need a phone number. Well, the mobile voice and data plan fixes that problem. And if you use my affiliate link to sign up, you get 10% off. So we all win. You get a phone number, you get data, and I get a little something to keep this show going. So mobal.com/Tony Japan is where you need to go to get that discount. And of course, there's a link down in the show notes as well. So I read, of course, the article, and then you talk about the big finale, and it seems like a very beautiful, place with the waterfall and all that. Could you tell us about like where you ended up and what's in that area?
Okay. So as we went on the trip, we started picking each day the easiest of the things. Like some days there was no choice and you kind of just had to walk one thing, but some days there would be like three things, and it would be like the strenuous option or the easy option. And then kind of by the last day, it was like, or you can have the no walking option. And we're like, you know what, we're going to do the no walking option on the last day. And that was the one. We took a whole series of buses that day to get to, I believe it's the Nachi Shrine, sort of the Nachi Grand Shrine and the Seigantoji Temple. Mm-hmm. And so, we took a lot of buses, at least 3 that day. It was super fun. We ended up sort of back in civilization, so to speak, It started to get really crowded and busy, and the Nachi Grand Shrine is very busy just with people that have nothing to do with the Kumano Kodō, who are just going there because it's a well-known spot. Mm-hmm. And we had learned through all the paperwork that we had got that you could go to the bottom and walk up, or you could go to the shrine, look around, and walk down. And we decided not to be super lazy and at least go to the bottom and walk up. Uh-huh. Right? So it's a bunch of steps to walk up? Yeah, you walk through this incredible forest. It must be like a bamboo type forest up the sort of the final, like as if you were the pilgrimage, as if we had walked that day. Yeah. And, the Japanese tourists knew to go to the bottom. So they were starting at the bottom and walking up. Whereas other people just kind of took the minibus or the bus to the end, to the shrine, and maybe didn't even go there. And so it was super beautiful. And you know what? Actually, I lied to you. I just remembered. I just totally made that up. We actually didn't do that. We went to the top first. That's how tired we were. And then we're like, we will just walk down. Why should we subject ourselves to walking up when we can just walk down, and every now and then we can turn around and look up, and it's the same experience without having to walk
Yeah.
up.
If you take a picture, you won't know which way you were heading, right?
So that was fine. So yeah, we looked around the beautiful shrine.
There's like a waterfall too?
Yeah, there was a waterfall, but honestly, it was too far, and we have a lot of waterfalls in Canada. So we're like, we saw it on the way up, and then we saw it from like a viewpoint, like from a distant viewpoint. So there's like a very specific place at the Grand Shrine, like by this pagoda temple, that you are supposed to stand to get this really specific photo that gets the temple in the foreground with the waterfall behind it. But it's like a very limited place where you can catch that view. So we had some like Instagram-y kind of fun, like trying to find that exact place and finding it and doing those photos. And then we started to walk down towards the waterfall, and we're like, you know what? We saw the waterfall from a distance. It looked good. It was January. It wasn't like high flow, right? It wasn't perfect. So we're like, yeah, let's just skip that and let's go do the walk down. It's called the Daimonzaka Slope. So it says, I'm just reading up on it. It was a 600-meter staircase that can be walked in about 40 minutes.
Oh,
the last trail,
yeah, a long walk.
And we're like, well, we can't skip it because in the booklet it said some say it's the most beautiful section of the Kumano Kodō. And it's all like very wide, long steps paved, like all with ancient stones that are covered in moss. So it was really beautiful. Oh, and it's covered, like Japanese cedar trees are the ones that were on the either side, including these two at the bottom that were like 800 years old that we stopped to sort of pay our respects to those trees. And just as an aside, up at the top, there were some vendors, including like that whole area, or maybe everywhere in Japan at that time. I don't know. There were orange vendors everywhere. So. Oh,
really? I guess it's the season. I mean, it might change depending on the season, but you were there in Mikan season, so it makes sense.
And they were, I think, doing fresh squeezed orange juices that I had. So that really was sort of the taste that I remember. So that was sort of the end, and then we ended up going to Kikatsura. But in between that, I wanted to just talk about one other, or maybe one or two other experiences in the middle. On that first day when we only went so far and then went to town, we wandered around this first town. I'm going to try to remember what that name of that town was. I think it was called Chikatsuyu Oji. And it was quite a substantial town. That was where Oku Japan had its headquarters. So we went into their office to chat with them. It had like a little main street with a few tiny restaurants. And it had a Japanese supermarket that we went and explored and bought stuff, and a Japanese bakery. And so we're like, this is all very valuable. This is like good, fun stuff. But we met this random guy, and he was just sort of standing on the street when we were walking towards our guest house, and he flagged us over. And he turned out to be quite a character. He was in his 80s. He was from nearby, from a place called Hongu, and he had a stroke. I think he used to be a teacher, and he had a stroke a few years ago, so he can't walk very far. But he has a radio show and a TikTok. He has a TikTok and a radio show. And
he's so interesting. He's an 80-year-old guy with a TikTok and a radio show.
Exactly. And he had been somewhere, maybe at his radio show that day, and he'd asked his daughter to drop him in this town that we were in so he could look for tourists. So for his thing is that he looks for tourists and he talks with them in English for TikTok. And I don't remember why, but anyway. And so he saw us, and it was, again, I keep telling you, it was January, so there weren't a ton of people around. So he was so excited when he saw us. and flagged us over. It was just like basically, you guys have to talk to me.
And he was like a former English teacher too. Is that the guy that you mentioned in the article? Yeah.
Exactly. And so he interviewed us for TikTok and all of that. Akira Nakagishi. I think you could probably find him on Instagram and TikTok. And so we did all that, and we're like, wow, that was super fun. But then he started messaging us, and he was like, okay, now I'm going to meet you tomorrow. And we're like, wait, what? No, we can't start structuring all our days around you. And he's like, what time are you going to be passing, like trail marker, whatever? And we're like, we have no idea. So sorry, it was great to meet you, but like, we don't know how fast we walk. We don't know where we are. We're just trying to get step by step, But then when we were walking, like we looked ahead, we were getting to Hongu, there's a temple, and we're like, oh, there he is. And he was like sitting on the trail waiting for us. And he's been waiting for hours.
Oh my God.
Because we were quite slow that day. And he was like, I needed to see you again. And he like re-interviewed us and did like a whole second day's worth of interviews. So anyway.
Oh my God. I mean, I've met some interesting people in random places, and sometimes they're a little too nice, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I appreciate it, but you really don't have to go that far. Oh, wow. Okay. Akira, funny guy. Okay. Well, the trip sounds super fun and approachable to both like people that aren't like hardcore walkers and people that, love walking, 8 hours a day or something. So either way, so that's really cool. And I'll include links to the article and all that. But I do have to ask you one more question that happened about something that happened after you're done walking. You go to Osaka, and then you went on this 7 convenience store tour. Like, I didn't know that this was a thing, that there were convenience store tours. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I did my first trip to Japan, which was in 2024 to Hokkaido, one of my fellow travel writers was very well versed in Japan. She'd been there a million times. And she introduced us to conbini, convenience store culture, but very specifically to the socks. You know about the socks, right?
I've heard about the socks, but I knew of them, but I didn't know they were that big of a deal.
Yeah, they're a big deal.
Tell us about the socks for anybody that isn't totally aware.
Right. So Lawson
and Family Mart are
7-Eleven and Family Mart. Okay. Yeah. So there's the 3 of them are the big 3, but then there's independents. Yeah. So I believe it was Family Mart partnered with a Japanese designer. You can look up the guy's name. Yeah, and for a line of convenience wear. And he kind of revolutionized socks. And he made these striped socks, white socks with like the colors of Family Mart. And they quickly became this kind of like iconic souvenir. And so she told us, like, whenever we were traveling around Hokkaido, she was looking for different socks to see who had what socks, because there can be like special limited edition socks and special branded socks. And there's some at 7-Eleven and there's some at Family Mart and there's some at Lawson, and they're different colors. Like Lawson partners with Muji, so they have their colors. And so I love stuff like that. I get really like addicted to like collectibles, right? And it's a fun souvenir and it's an easy souvenir. I travel carry-on only, so I never can take back liquids and I can't take back food. So I took back socks. And so there was like a really good article on monocle.com about convenient socks. And I think BBC did a whole article about this. And then just before I went, or just as I was going on this trip, CNN wrote a big story. So that kind of swept across North America. And it was about convenience stores, convenience store culture, convenience store food. And a brand new convenience store conbini tour had launched in Tokyo. And they were claiming to be sort of the first of a kind. And I actually didn't read that article until we were already just finishing our day in Tokyo, and I missed it. And I was so mad. I was like, we could have, like, yes, we went on our own to a million conbinis. But I'm like, we could have had a guide, it could have been better. We could learn something. I could have had a better story, all that sort of stuff. And so I had another connection through tourism in Japan, and they put us in touch with Arigato Travel, which is like a tour company, and they have tours in Osaka. And so I emailed them and was like, I know it's short notice, like it's, only a few days away, but is there any way that you would create like a custom conbini tour for us? And they were like, absolutely. And so we met them, and, they were testing it out for themselves, and the guide was really excited to do it. And they brought along like a staff photographer so they could, do some coverage of it for themselves. And he picked the Namba neighborhood.
Namba.
It doesn't matter, but he just
Osaka.
knew that.
Namba, big shopping area in Osaka. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like the local side of Namba. It was like not the touristy side. And he picked it because his friends live around there, and he knew it had some really neat versions of of these supermarkets. Mm-hmm. There was like a Lawson. I can't remember what it's called, Lawson 50 or Lawson.
Right. There's all kinds of like sub varieties within each, branch. Yeah. Exactly.
So by that point, I had found all of the Lawson socks that I needed. And I had found the Family Mart socks. I think Family Mart had done like some co-branding with Stranger Things.
Yeah,
so I got like the Stranger Things stuff.
Yeah.
And then there were some really funky colored ones that were for like the Tokyo Marathon special edition sock. But I had not found the 7-Eleven sock, and it was like making me go crazy. So I was like, and we have to find the 7-Eleven's socks. Anyway, in the end, we didn't find them, but that was okay. But he had just picked a really great route, and we went to all of these different convenience stores. And we had gone to a bunch on our own and stumbled around and found our own things. But it was just really fun because he said, this is what I would eat, or this is what I would order, and this is my favorite thing. And instead of getting the egg sando, get the strawberry cream sando. And, this is the one that serves ice cream. And this is the one where you make the smoothie on your own from the frozen smoothie bits. And, there was like a weird creme brulee ice cream, Japanese ice cream that was like unbelievably good. And it was a really incredible, fun way to end our trip to Japan. I think that was like the morning before we caught our flights home that night. Yeah.
Right. No, that is really, I mean, convenience store, like, what to expect more or less. There'll be breads and all that, but especially if you've never been before, like it can be really overwhelming, right? And then you just end up going with, everybody says get the egg sandwich and get the fried chicken, right? And then that's great. I mean, you should, try it out if you want to try that, but there's a lot of stuff in these convenience stores. So to have a local tell you like, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. If you're into this, you should try this and this and this. That's really cool. That's a really unique, thing that you can do.
Yeah, it was, the Hokkaido milk cream cake rolls. That was our guy's favorite dish. And Ohio brulee.
Ohio brulee. Okay.
Yeah, Google it. And weirdly, I was like, that's so good. I'm so glad like Japan's so far away, right? Because that's too delicious. But then I got home, and of course we have a huge Asian, community in Toronto. So I Googled it, and of course I can go find it in Toronto. Like it's like 10 minutes away at like an Asian supermarket. So it's really dangerous information.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, I learned something. I didn't know there were these convenience store tours. So, I was glad I got to find out about that.
And again, like the one that we looked up that was in Tokyo, they are set up, that they are on this day at this time, and they have 10 spots. And so you can just grab a
cool.
spot for a fairly affordable price. And I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm sure more people are
Probably.
going to be jumping on it. For us, for Arigato Travel, which is also Arigato Japan Food Tours, they're a little higher end than that. So they don't really have public tours like that. So you just hire them for a custom tour. And so when you do custom tours, you can do whatever you want. Like you can do like, I want half of it to be, conbini and half of it to be whatever. So
Right. Yeah, no, but that's a great point that, there are places that also offer custom tours. So it's always a good idea to just ask if you really want to do something specific. You never know. They might be able to do it and you'll have an even better experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So of course I'll include all the links, but where should people go to check out your stuff? Is there any specific links that you want to send them towards?
Well, I'm a travel writer, so I have a portfolio website, which is jenniferbain.co, and I just put links to all of the stories that I write for different publications there.
Cool,
and
cool.
I think I'm not huge on social media, but on Instagram, I'm at the Saucy Lady.
Ooh,
and I was a food writer for a very long time in Toronto, so that was my sort of persona, was the Saucy Lady.
Gotcha. Okay. And what's your next trip coming up?
I am going to Helsinki.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Can you tell us, what is there a specific thing you're going there to do?
I'm going to Helsinki because Finnair is launching direct flights from Toronto to Helsinki. And so I'm going to be on the inaugural flight on May 4th. And that's the fun of being a travel writer, is just being invited to sort of random places where you're like, wow, I didn't have Helsinki on my radar, but I'm going to go there. I'm going to find out what's super fun to do there. And I'm going to do it.
Awesome. I mean, you're making me want to, be a travel writer.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for making time and for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it.
It was really fun to talk to you. Thanks so much.